G'day everyone, welcome. We're going to get underway just 1 second. I'm going to go make my cup of tea and then we'll be there. Good, welcome everyone. While I go and quickly make my cup of tea and give people time to join, perhaps just let us know where you're dialing in from. That would be awesome. G'day Debbie, welcome. Mark, g'day in Canada. Don't know if you guys are still getting snow there or not, but I hope you're not. Deanne, welcome, good morning. G'day Cheryl over in Maine, which I think is on the east coast, correct me if I'm wrong. G'day Veronica, how's things in Melbourne? Janet, hi, Nova Scotia, welcome. So excited that you guys can all join me. Makes my day that you can all join me painting, so thank you. Hopefully you've all got yourselves a cup of tea. Very important part of painting. So what we're going to do today is, g'day Cindy, another Canadian. Wow, we've got a good contingency from Canada today, so welcome Cindy. What we're going to do today is, I've got a 12 by 16 inch canvas, just on a rolled tube which I just taped up to the board here, and I'm going to do a landscape scene. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to incorporate a local landmark here on the Sunshine Coast. It's a mountain called Mount Nindri, right? And I'm just going to make it up from my memory of it, and I'm going to put the mountain right there. And then I'm going to have this sort of foreground landscape with a little cottage, like a farmhouse, and we'll have a big sort of tree here. And I like painting little sort of homely scenes, like with a little clothesline and things like that. It's a subject that I really enjoy painting. So that's what we're going to do today. It's going to be exciting. We'll see how much we can get through in an hour. I want to keep these to around about an hour. I'll probably get through a fair bit of it, I would think, if we paint fast and don't talk too much, which could be a problem. Okay, so thank you all for joining me. If you haven't told us where you're from yet, then please do. We always love to find out where in the world everyone is. So, Atelier Interactive Paints, ultramarine blue. I keep calling this alizarin crimson in all my videos, but it's actually permanent alizarin. Same thing. It's just a transparent cool red. So you could use magenta if the brand of paint that you're using is not good alizarin. G'day Tracy, Nelson Bay, welcome. Alright, let's get underway. Feel free to ask questions as we go, and I shall endeavour to answer them. Whether I answer them with intelligence or not, of course I will. Try and duck my head underneath there, but that didn't work. Alright, let's go. Let's get painting. So, if you've been following my stuff for a while, you know I use these two as a dark for drawing. With a little bit of water. Grab that ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson. So, whoops, what happened there? Dropped a big chunk of paint, that's okay. It's usually what I do. So how's everyone's painting going? You all painting well, I hope? I'm just trying to think, I want to have my main tree to sort of sit up in here somewhere. And sort of a foreground interest. So it's going to sit somewhere there. Which means I don't want to make Mount Nindri too big. It's got this sort of roundedness to it, and there's a lot of Aborigine Dreamtime mythology around Mount Nindri. They're probably too close together, Can you see that? Like that's going to become too crowded there. So I can either move my tree over, or I can make that smaller and move that over. So I might just change that tone slightly. I might just move Mountain Injury over to here. Now that's not the exact shape of Mountain Injury, but as I said, I'm making this up from memory. If I get it close enough, anyone who lives up this way or has been up this way will know that rounded shape as you go past the Andina there. And that's really all I care about. I'm not doing a portrait of Mountain Injury at this stage. So, how are we looking? G'day Dorothy. Forest Hill in California, welcome. Okay, it may be coming through that I'm a lefty Deanne, but I'm actually a right-hander. It's just that for some reason it reverses the camera, so I'm actually a right-hander. I'm using acrylic, Cindy. I'm using the Artilia Interactive acrylics. G'day Wendy, North Carolina, welcome. Glad you could all join us. Doreen, welcome. Doreen, you come out in a green bubble. I don't know why. I don't know how you did that, but anyway. Okay, so this tree I think we won't make it too big, but we definitely want to have it come in there, and then this foreground shadow I think is important. And then along the base of this Mountain Injury, we're going to have, there's trees there, it's off in the distance, so there's going to be other trees there in the distance, okay? So I'll just map those in. But the more important part of what I want is the cottage. So I can't put the cottage right in the middle there, that won't work. Right, so somewhere there's no good. So it needs to sort of sit somewhere like so. This is going to be a farmhouse. That's probably too big. It's okay. What we'll do is we'll just end it there. We'll bring it in there. That's probably better. So we want it to be around about that size. We'll put a little veranda out there. So I like these little, sneaky little views of farmhouses in the bush or in a country setting like this, and adding in a story to it. I'll probably put a clothesline here with some clothes hanging there, somewhere like that, and we'll put a path meandering past the house. Now I'm just stopping and thinking, can you guys see the same problem that I can see? That this Mountain Injury now, because it's so far over here and the cottage, the balance doesn't quite feel right. I do think that needs to come. I'm probably fussing with this a bit more than what I would normally do, just because I want to do a good painting for you all. I think it's probably going to sit somewhere like that. Now, if you haven't seen my painting before, you're probably thinking that's looking a right mess, which is fine. It's just about working out where are those sort of bigger shapes going to, where are they going to fit into the painting, yeah? And I think we're going reasonably well with that. No yellow ochre. Okay. Give me one sec. Sorry folks, just realised I've run out of yellow ochre and got a pot full of old paints here, so I'll I'll use a student quality brand for our yellow ochre. Should be perfectly fine if I can get the lid off. Alright. Now, I think the most important thing for us to do here is to get our darks into this tree and the shadow, and then get our tone right for the mountain. And that way we can see the balance between the two and start setting up our tonal structure and getting that right. Welcome to those people who are just joining us. Good to have you. Let us know whereabouts you are tuned in from. G'day, Cara. Okay. So, let's just get a dark for that tree. Add a little touch of the yellow in there. Keep your palette simple. It'll make your life so much easier. Okay, so it's going to be a sort of dark as that foreground shadow, which by putting a nice dark in the foreground there, when I put some highlights on the grass in here, which is where I want the eye to be, right, this little farmhouse here, it's going to make that really pop out by having it nice and dark in that foreground there. One of the painters that I learnt a lot from, even though I never took a class or anything with him, a guy called Jack White, and he talked about having this idea of having a threshold in the painting, you know, something for the eye to step over and into. Learned a lot from Jack in different areas. Alright, so I'm going to have the sunlight coming from over here, so we'll have the highlights on there, down that side of the trunk, the front of the building there. There's a little bit of balance there. Okay, notice that I'm leaving lots of sky holes in there. Okay, pretty important. No, I'm not Anne, I'm making this up. Welcome, thank you for joining us. G'day Colin. Dapto, I don't know where Dapto is, mate. Is that, I thought you're down Wollongong way, but and as I said in the intro, this is Mount Ninderry. It's a well-known landmark here on the Sunshine Coast, and so I'm just using it purely from memory, and I'm making up a little country scene with a cottage of a little farmhouse. I'm going to put a clothesline, maybe a couple of kids playing, so that it's purely a made-up painting, and I'm just doing it from memory, but I'm basing it off a local landmark. So I hope that helps. It's something that I do quite a lot, is that I will paint a subject that is largely from just my memory of it, even though I do use a lot of reference photos as well. Okay, so I need a bluey grey for the mountain here. And for the moment I'm just blocking in, so if that's not 100% right, then I can adjust it. So I'm not committed to anything at this stage. Got a little bit of red coming out there. So I didn't clean my brush. Because I'm using a limited palette, I don't clean the brush except for when I go from a cool to a warm. But you can see I've got little bits of red and little flecks of paint from doing the tree is coming out in here. Okay, now that's actually, I think, a good thing, because what it does, it harmonises the tones and the colours in the painting. Gives it some unity, okay? So I'm blocking in, so I'm using big brush. No point mucking around with a small brush when you're blocking in. Just slow you down. Okay, now the next most important part, I think, is going to be a tonal step between this and the dark. We need a halfway point between the two, and that's going to be this little row of trees in the background there. South of Wollongong, yeah. I thought you were down that way, Colin. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. We need to get dark that sits between there and there. So how do we do that? Well, we're just using the same colours, right? This is what makes it so easy. It's just by using the same colours. G'day Chris in Birkengerry, just down the road. What made me choose that tone for the distance? I needed a lighter value than the foreground tree and shadow, okay? And two things, or three things, right? To create depth in the layers, so we've got like atmospheric perspective. The value is the first thing. So this is darker in the foreground, that's lighter. That's the first thing, right? Second thing is the temperature. So I've got a lot more red in here, as you can probably see, than I've got in here. This is more blue. So warm colours come forward, cool colours push back. So that's the second thing. Then the third thing is this is a little bit grayer in here than what this is. This is more saturated colour. You might remember I only picked up the blue and the red in here. This has got blue, red, white, and a little touch of the yellow in there. And it's greyed off, so it's less saturated. So that's, but I'm not committed to that currently as being the, the final final step. This is going to have some nice rocky escarpment, rock faces on there with the sunlight hitting on there. So, okay, so now we need a blue. So you can see here, this is another thing that I learned some years ago. I've got my darkest dark there, right, which is here, this one here. And then I've got my blue for the mountain here. And I've mixed them separately, but I put them close together. So now I can compare the two, if that makes sense, yeah? Compare the two, and what I need to do here now is just get a tone that's going to sit between them, right? So if you have a look at that, that is the same as that. That's no good. It needs a touch of white in there. And I'm going to sneak up on the white. I'm not going to put all the white in at once, right? Because that would be a mistake. So, see that tone? It's lighter than that, but it's darker than that. If I pop that there, okay, what we need to do is be able to distinguish that from the layer behind it. At the moment, it's probably too similar. I mean, you can see it. If I put highlights over that and shape those trees, then it will work. But I'll just darken it back a little bit. There we go, that's better. Okay. And then I'll use the trees here to shape the roof of my little cottage. Okay. Get a little bit blurry with the edges as we come up to that foreground tree. And I've just got to be careful I don't end the bottom of that with the top of that little veranda there. That would be a mistake. So we'll have to look at how we're going to address that. Okay. But it's convenient to be able to use this tree line to be able to shape out our farmhouse, and that when we put a light roof on that farmhouse against that dark backdrop, that's going to make it pop out, which is what we want, because that's our little centre of interest there, right? I'll just darken that all up in there, because when I put a nice light sheet on the clothesline there, that'll look good. Okay. And just bring up a couple of trees there. Probably a little bit too high. So the shape of this, I'm not 100% sold on the shape of that yet. I think we need to work on that. What do you guys think? Not 100% sold on it, but we should press on for the moment. Just get some darks in around there. Okay. I will reshape it when I when I come to do the sky. Reshape. Okay. So the next logical thing I think to do is to get in this earth colour. I'm going to put some green grasses in there. I found that the best block-in tone for it is, thank you for whoever gave me a heart, that's very kind of you. Yeah, I found that the best sort of block-in colour is a reddy orange, a nice earthy tone, right? As you get up to sort of where I live here on the Sunshine Coast and you head further north, the earth is really red. But that's not the reason why I block it in. Actually, I probably need to tone that back just a little bit. See that? A little bit of white there. Just drop the tone back for in the distance there. Yeah, it's not the reason why I use the red for the block in. It's because when I put green over the top of this orangey tone, the green really pops. Mix that up a little bit. Can even flick up a few little bits of grass there, but not too much because we don't want that to be pulling the eye. Start to shape up this trunk. Okay. Now at this point, some beginner students who have joined our courses and so on, they get to this point and then they start to get a little bit uncomfortable with the whole painting process. I'll make sure I'm not standing in front of the painting, am I, while I'm doing it? Let me know if I am, and I'll try and stand to one side. Yeah, a lot of beginners, they get to this point and they look at what they've got up on the board and they it doesn't quite match what they think they should be doing. But if you've been with us for a while and you've seen some of the Learn to Paint TV, you'll know it all works out in the end. Don't make that like, I had it like a solid line, you know, like for that shadow. So I'm just going to blur it up a little bit, break it up, don't make it too uniform and neat. Smudge some of that dark around. Okay. And notice I'm not really a neat painter. I'm not pedantic and, you know, fill in little brush marks. Big brush marks, and I like expressive brush marks in a painting. You know, I went to the National Gallery in Melbourne the first time and saw the Arthur Streeton paintings, and you know, when you look at the skies that he did, you know, he had a brush probably about that size. Now he was doing big paintings, plein air, but a brush about that size, and he'd load up the sky tone and he'd just go chunk, you know, and that'd be the brush mark, and you could actually see all the fibres of the, you know, the grooves, and I just love that look, you know, with really thick paint. Do the edges of my blue and orange turn colour? You mean up here? They're going to merge a little bit, but that's okay, because edges are a really important part of creating depth into a painting. I didn't cover that before, but if you have hard edges in the back, then the eye gets drawn to them. So I don't mind if, you know, my orange and my purple sort of smudge a little bit there. You know, in fact, I'll smudge some and we'll there you go. I don't mind that, because, you know, wild grasses grow up and you do get that counterplay between the lighter tones and the shadows in bushes and so on. So if the colour gets a bit muddy, it's usually because you're using way more than 3 colours, right? And the colours start to not relate to each other. So if you're getting really muddy colours, you're mixing too many different unrelated tones into a painting. And you can avoid that just by having a really simple palette. And I cover this in quite a bit of depth in the colour mixing course. So if you haven't checked that out, it's definitely worthwhile, because you'll understand why the power of a limited palette. Now, I'm not saying that that's the only palette you ever use, not at all. When you're learning to get your values right, your composition, and you're trying to learn how to mix colour, like I showed you there with your darkest dark, your lighter, and then your mid. When you're learning all of that, keeping it simple, right? Keeping it really simple. I've basically used 2 brushes so far. I mean, when I say 2 brushes, 2 of this one, right? This is a 1-inch wide brush. I've got 3 or 4 of this exact brush, so I can have my, lights and my darks and so on. But it's the same brush, so I'm basically using 1 or 2 brushes. Pat, the colours, same colours I use in Learn to Paint TV every week, and most of our courses, it's ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson or permanent crimson or a magenta, and yellow ochre and white. And then I'll add to it some booster colours a little bit later on. Okay, for now though, we need to get the sky in. So a big chunk of white, big chunk of blue, mix those together. I want to do a nice blue sky here today. A little bit of cloud, but not much, because it is on the sunny coast after all. Okay, let's have a look at that. That's not bad. We'll just block some of that in. Now, the key with acrylics, use a lot of paint and you'll have time to work back into it. Well, you won't have much time because it's hot here. The studio's hot. But if I didn't use enough paint, then I'd be in trouble because it'd be drying off real quick. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to reshape this a little. It's going to get a little bit muddy in there initially, but I'll come back to it. Put some paint off the brush and then I'll just feather this together a little bit. When that dries, it'll settle down nicely. I'm quite confident. Okay, now I can continue to reshape that as we go. So I'm not locked into that, but I'm thinking it's a better shape than what it was, but it still needs work. Now this is where you've got to be careful. I've got all this dark here. Just got to be careful that I don't smudge that. A little bit is okay because I want the edges soft on this foliage. Okay, so a little bit of smudging is okay. And if it does smudge too badly, I've still got to put my highlights on, and I'll strengthen up those darks anyway. So we'll be fine, he says. Ever hopeful. A little bit in there and there. Now I've kind of worked into that tree a fair bit and lost the shape of it, so I need to reshape that. Okay, which is fine, we'll do that. So there's a little bit of movement in that sky. It's not just one sort of plain boring sky. I'm probably a little bit too light in there though. I think I'll just work a little bit more blue down, a little bit lower. All right. How are we travelling, do you think? G'day, Qualita, I think it is. Welcome. Glad you could join us. I think we're going pretty good. I'm going to have a sip of my tea, stand back and have a look. If you want to ask me questions, feel free to do so. All good. Okay. Need to get some darks in around the bottom here. If you don't put darks in around the bottom, then your farmhouse is going to be floating in the air. And nobody wants their farmhouse floating in the air. Okay, so we'll just take some of this dark here and work some of that in there. Something a little like that. Okay, what do we do next? So basically, just let me know if you've been watching our Learn to Paint TV that we put out each week. Just let me know by saying yes in the comments there. I just want to check who's watching or not. But basically, if you have been watching it, you will know that where I'm up to now is I've just finished step 2 of the Moore method of painting. Okay, I've done the drawing and have done the block in, and you know what I'm doing now is chatting and having a cup of tea, because if you follow along with what we're doing, then you'll know that I'm letting that dry, right? Now I'm not going to let it dry as fully because I'd have you here for too long, but it's still drying while we're talking. That's the good thing about acrylics, right? So it's going to dry, and we are going to be working over almost dry surfaces. So the thing with acrylics is, after you've done your blocking, that's when you go and have lunch or you go out and do your shopping, right? And then you come back half an hour to an hour later, and it's then ready for you to be able to then tackle the next step. If you try and work into it while it's tacky, like you know, it's still coming off of my finger there, then no good with acrylics. So I've got it to a certain point, and now we're pausing for a moment, having up for time. I'll do this, it's not too bad. Cool. G'day Joan, nice to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Cindy, I think it's coming really nicely. Thank you for explaining the colours. My pleasure, Cindy. Thank you for the kind words. Chris, pretty cool. I can almost imagine the house my grandfather built at Yandina. Oh, nice, Chris. Yeah, well, that's, you know, I'm in a lot of artistic license here, right? But yeah, I'm from memory trying to capture that feel of Mount Nindra in the background. It's a completely made up painting, but it's nice that it reminds you of your grandfather's house. And for those of you who are interested in selling art, you know, picking out little local landmarks like that is definitely a good thing to do for that purpose, because if you can evoke fond memories in people, then they're more inclined to want to own that piece of art. So I appreciate you saying that, Chris. Beautiful part of the world there. Veronica, do I ever use a hairdryer? I do a little bit of watercolour. I find with acrylics that it goes a little bit flat. I don't know. I've just never been that happy with hairdryer on acrylics, and I've just developed over the last few years just the habit of blocking in and then you know, then going and doing something else for an hour or so. So no, not on acrylic, but you could give it a try. Yeah. Tracy, are you doing it wrong because you always start with your sky? Not necessarily. I mean, there's no right or wrong way, right? there's just not. There's a million different approaches to painting, right? But here's the trap, though, if you start with the sky, and that's values. And so what I find with, I made this mistake for the first 2 or 3 years, right? Is I painted my skies too dark. And if you start with the sky and you start with it too dark, that's going to be too dark, and then you're going to struggle to get the definite jumps in values so that you can create depth. That's the biggest trap with starting with the sky, right? So if you notice what I did, I started with the darkest dark here. So I know how to get my darkest dark. I started with that. Then I went to the mountain because that's our furthest point besides the sky. So I've got layer 1 here, then we've got layer 2, this middle distance, then we've got layer 3, this sort of row of trees in the background, then layer 4 is that mountain. So I went to that, what should be the lighter value of those layers, and I got the separation between them, and then it's just steps in between, right? If you start with this, and then all I need to do is just go lighter than that with my sky, even though it can be darker at the top. So the biggest problem that a lot of people have is they start with the sky and go too dark too early, and I used to do that all the time. So I hope that answers your question, Tracy. There's no right or wrong way, whatever works for you. G'day, Anna. You're watching from Ireland, Co Sligo. Nice. Thank you. Well, welcome to the live stream. I appreciate you being here. Hey Cheryl, that's good. I'm glad that tip helped. So you don't need to have half an hour is probably all you really need. And I can see where it's wet in here. It's wet there, but the rest of it now is pretty dry. So we'll push on. We'll push on. Thank you for the questions. I appreciate it. So I just want to find out, have you guys been watching the Learn to Paint TV? And if so, how do you enjoy it? How do you enjoy it? What can we do different with it? Got big plans for it with streaming TV, Amazon Prime and things like that I want to work towards. So any feedback you can give us on it, I'd greatly appreciate it. I certainly enjoy doing it, but I want to make sure that you guys, it's working for you guys. Okay. Whoop. It's overly enthusiastic, that blue. Okay. So next step I'm going to do now is I'm just going to strengthen up some of this dark in my foliage here. There's a fair bit of white canvas showing through, which I didn't pick up with the sky. Create those little umbrella shapes there. So this is a gum tree. So it's got these little umbrella shapes and some clumps in the middle. Okay. I'll take a small brush. Just get this bit of a trunk happening here. Yeah, I'm not happy with that, but we'll just keep it simple for today. A little bit more shadow around the base there. Okay. So that sky's a little bit wet there. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm just trying to get the right shape of this tree happening. So it's all good. Let that dry off. Now while that's drying off, let us tackle a little bit of a rocky escarpment on there. Okay, just a little touch. And you may know that I love paintings with distant mountains and rocky escarpments. Okay, So all I've done is I've just mixed up a orange, yellow, red and white. And I've been playing around with my little palette knife. I bought some DVDs from a very well-known Australian artist. Cost me a small fortune, but hey. And he uses a palette knife a fair bit, which I didn't realise. So I've been playing around with it. So see how I've just placed the knife there and just scraped it down? That's how you want to load your palette knife. Okay. If you do it the way I used to do it, where you got paint all over it, that's no good. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just put in some rocks. Now this is very similar to the old Bob Ross creating snow on the mountain technique, really. It's not exactly the same, but the canvas leaves those little broken bits of paint, like so, and if you overpaint it, then a couple of things I can do. I can just take some more of that tone, got to find it again. Just put some of that tone back into it. Notice I've sort of blurred it a little bit there, which probably not a bad idea. And look, one thing I'm just going to experiment here, and I might not like this, and I might get rid of it, but you never know. I might like it. Just going to mix up a little greeny tone. You see the problem there? Look at that. Didn't take my own advice. So that time I've loaded it on the side there. Whoop, where are we? There. Okay. I just want to just get a little hint of some foliage in there. I don't want to create highlights, just break up that purple a little bit. So I think that tone's working. Excuse my head. I'm just going to do it a little bit random. I don't even know. Can you guys see that? I don't even know if you can see it because it's so close in value to the purple that you may not actually even be able to see it. But just to give that mountain just a little bit more form and so on. Pardon me. Now I don't know if you noticed, but it started picking up the underpaint. It's because it's not fully dry. So I'll just use a brush and just soften that back in here and there. Okay, so that's kind of what Mountain Injury looks like when all the rocks are lit up. It's obviously not identical because I'm just going from memory, but it looks something like that. What am I painting on? It's just a roll canvas. So I buy canvas on a great big roll, and then I just cut out sections like that. Part of the reason why I do that, I'm going to pop this up on eBay for an auction, and makes it easier to roll up into a postal tube and ship to people. So cool. What is the other painting tutorial you referred to? I've not seen them. Oh, okay, so if you go to learntopaint.tv, every week I do a TV episode where we do a painting like this. So go and check out learntopaint.tv and check out learntopaint.academy as well. That's where you'll find our free course. I'll teach you how to paint on the free course there. So thanks for your question, Chris. Cool. Yep, I agree with you, Jane. The hairdryer, just, I don't know, it didn't work out well when I used the hairdryer on acrylics, but it seems to be okay with the watercolour. Okay, let us now get busy. I'm going to put in just some few little highlights on this tree, line of trees. So the way we do that, we're going to find that similar sort of tone. It's a little bit on the purple side, so it's blue and red. Okay. A little bit more red in there. There's a little bit of white in there. Okay, so it's probably a little bit too red. If I pop that there, because what I'm doing is trying to find that same tone. Very similar in value, but it's just a little bit too warm. So a touch more blue in there. And then what we're going to do, once we find that right tone, what we do is lighten it and then warm it. Okay, I'll just put way too much yellow in there. So I'll just pick up this other, there we go, it's better. Okay. Now it never looks quite right up there. What you've got to do always is test. So just get a little tiny bit. When you're doing highlights, you don't want too much paint on the brush. Okay. And scrunch my brush up. Just get some more interesting effects. Just get a little touch of that and let's just test whether that's the right tone or not. It's a little bit flat, it's a little bit on the dull side. Needs a little bit of a pick-me-up. So it's going to have more of a golden glow to it. There we go, that's better. Okay, now, light's coming from over here. Now I'm not going to overly detail up this background row of trees here. But you can see that highlight tone now pushes the Mountain Injury further back, doesn't it? Got a couple of those that are not quite right. A little bit in through there. A couple that are a little bit blotchy because I had paintbrush getting a little bit too clunked up. So whatever's on the brush is going to end up on there. Keep that in mind. I think it's a good rule of thumb. Okay. Let us now work on this cottage. So if the sun's coming from there, the front of the cottage is going to be it's going to be in light here, but it's going to be in shadow on this side. So, but we don't want the shadow to be as dark as the foliage behind it. So I'll just get the blue and the white, a little touch of the red. Okay. Make up a bluey grey. That's probably too, it's probably too dark. Yep. Add more white to that. It's a little weatherboard cottage, so we don't want it to be too dark. But we'll just start to block in. Now can you see that because I made it a little bit lighter, if I'd gone with that dark, it wouldn't have popped out as much. The contrast wouldn't have been as great. But because I lightened it off just that little bit, you can see it against the background row of trees. Okay, so I block that part in. And what colour will we do the roof? What colour will we do the roof? Why don't you guys tell me? We'll do it like a red corrugated iron, or do we just do a white corrugated iron with rust? Or decisions. While you guys think about that and give me an answer, let me just get this path in here. A little bit of a bend in the road there, just for interest's sake. What do you think? What colour should that roof be? White with rust? White with rust? Cool. Now you don't want to do it pure white. So we'll take our pure white and we'll get just a touch of the shadow colour. Okay, we'll get a bit more of that pure white. I've got a little bit of the red from there as well. That's okay. I just want an off-white, right? Basically, is what I think we want. Now, the more I'm looking at it, the more I think this Mountain Injury is too dark in value. Possibly. I may have to adjust that, but anyway, we'll worry about that in a little bit. Get a little bit of dark, and what we do, have a door there for the laundry. Might go with a small brush. Playing around with this palette knife. The more if you want to learn a new thing, the more you use it, the quicker you'll learn it. So normally I'd do this with a brush. I still may. my palette knife technique's still not great, but it will get better. Okay, now. One thing we've forgotten, rust the same colour as the foreground, midground, absolutely, thank you Cole. Basically we want that tone there. So I'll just pop some of that in. While it's wet, better to just pop a little bit in there. Okay, now what's missing? What's missing is a chimney. So we'll take a ready tone. We'll put one out back there. And maybe want one just there. Probably not the right spot for the chimneys, but I'll come back to it. Okay, now we are going to, checking what colours I need. Now we are going to put in some grasses, add a lighter yellow green to the highlights of the trees, and the value colour of the mountain will be perfect. Yeah, that could work too, Wendy, thank you. I'll come back to that. I just want to get this foreground tone in first. Okay, so we want a bit of blue, a bit of yellow, a bit of white. Pop that down there, a bit more yellow. So I'm just making a muted yellowy green. Okay, you can see a muted yellowy green. that's not bad there. Don't want that too strong in the back. See, I had different colours and tones on my brush there, which are coming out, which is good. Stand back and have a look. Yep, that's starting to work. Miriam, I don't know why you're blacked out. That's a shame. I think everyone else is fine. Maybe refresh your page. Pat, yeah, I think that's working, isn't it? That just brings that little bit of lightness into this middle ground area. And notice I'm breaking up the colour and I'm just trying to get a bit of variety in there. Different brush strokes. Just pulling some of it up over the shadows in the back. Now, because it's an Australian landscape scene, I'm not going to get too bright with it in the grasses. Although I am in the Sunshine Coast, so it probably does get... I'm used to painting, you know, when I started out down in Victoria, where the grasses would all, they'd brown off. So I tend to paint my grasses that yellowy, earthy tone. Which, where I live on the Sunshine Coast, everything's green. It's so green. I can't believe it. And I struggle with green. A little bit, I don't struggle with it, but I'm just used to painting my grasses a certain way and just got to change that thinking a little bit. Okay, that's good. It's starting to settle in nicely. Now, somebody said I should lighten off the highlights there. Wendy, and I think you might be right. That will give us more of a pop between the two layers. And maybe tie it in a little bit more with these foreground grasses, but not too much. So I'll get a smaller brush and we'll just experiment with that. Now I wasn't going to go for an hour, but I feel like we've got a bit of work to do yet, so I'll go for another 15 or 20 minutes, see how far we can get this. So if I take white, pop that in there, yellow. Going to be a better tone, I think. The only thing is it brings them forward a bit more than what I was hoping for. So I may have to tone them down a little. I have to tone them back. 100% what I was after. Not to worry. Wendy's laughing or smiling? One of the two. Probably laughing at me. Okay. Going to take a little bit of a warmer yellow, a touch of red in there. Put in a little bit of a bush that's a little bit closer to us. Maybe pop that in there. Okay. How's it looking, do you think? One of the problems with your paint, I reckon, is that you get too close to your own work. Like, you know, when you're standing right up close to it. So you were laughing at me, Wendy. Why were you laughing at me? Now you made me paranoid. She's laughing at me. Okay. One there. A little bit there. This is a real rustic old farmhouse. Let's get some white. Breathe, Rod. Now, I'm going to put a bed sheet there. And the natural thing to do would be to put it white. However, it needs a little bit of white in there, but not a pure white. Just where it's catching the sunlight more. So it needs also that little bit of shadow. Dad's red footy top. Cool, cool. Dorian, yes, I think you are right. That is one of the most difficult things to get used to with acrylic. No doubt. All right. Yeah, there's probably not enough depth between that tree and the cottage. I think somebody commented, which I can see what you mean. It does look a little close. Okay. Cheryl loves it. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you to everyone else who left a comment. Bruce, we're about to do highlight on this main tree here, so hopefully you'll get an answer to your question there, mate. But basically, highlights come as a result of both the dark and the light. Okay. Now, if anyone's wondering what colours I just mixed up then, There's the blue, a little bit of the red, and the yellow ochre. Ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, tiny little bit of the booster colour, which is cad yellow. Basically the same colours that the whole painting's been done in, yeah? Too umbrella-y, so I'll just darken that tone slightly. You want to create umbrella shapes, but they don't want to be too obvious either. It's coming along reasonably well. I'm quite happy with it for a little bit of a demo. So I'll just brighten up that highlight a little. A little bit clumpy. A little bit clumsy and clumpy. Not happy about that. And by the way, I tend to mutter to myself when I'm not happy with it. So there's a couple of things I think we could have done better with this, and you know, trying to talk and interact and paint, it is challenging because you're switching from left brain to right brain. But the big thing that I would do differently if I sort of took a bit more time and care planning it out is the shape of this tree. I don't think the shape of the tree is that convincing. I mean, it's close, but it's just not 100%. Just softening back some of those colours there. Now, my paint, so this is a problem with acrylics. I didn't refresh my palette, okay, which I do when I do the learn to paint. I'll come out with a brand new palette, and because I didn't do that here, it's all getting quite sticky and making it a little bit challenging. So that's, yeah, it's important to understand your medium and how your medium works. So if you're an acrylic painter, you've got to really get a feel for how to make acrylics do what you want to do. Smudge that colour in there. Starting to come off my board now, so I need to act fast. Good, yes, the light and shadow is starting to pop. Now we get a dirty light tone on the orange side. So we'll touch of that. We'll touch of that yellow. Okay. I've mucked up my tree trunk a little bit there, but it's okay. How's that looking? Thanks, Pat. Appreciate that. Chris, thank you. Tree could be from Canada because, yeah, it's not really taking on the shape of a Australian gum as much as I'd like. But it's close, you know. It's close for a little demo. I'm not unhappy with it. It's, I think it's a nice little subject, which is worth exploring more, and I'll probably, continue to do these type of subjects because I enjoy them. Like this is the sort of style of painting that I like. Thanks, Wendy. Appreciate that. Looks like a gum tree now. Thanks, Veronica. It's a clumpy gum tree. You guys might not be able to see there's a fair bit of white canvas coming through here, and taking a bit more time and care with the blocking would prevent that. So it's looking a little bit sparkly from where I'm sitting now. I'm just going to strengthen that trunk of the tree back up. Just in here, I pulled in some of that green. Of the grasses, and I'll soften some of those highlights as well if they're too strong. And I think that's too upright, so I'll just introduce, maybe there's an old tree stump there, which needs a little touch of highlight but not too much. Okay, and then I always like to put little features that indicate that it's it's a home. So that's why I always tend to put in fence posts. But they're not always a good idea to put in because you can stop the eye from wandering into the painting a bit too much. Okay, but a couple of little fence posts there. A couple out the back. Keep the kangaroos in. Or the koalas. Got to keep your kangaroos and koalas in check. Well, there we go. That's a little Australian bush setting with the backdrop of Mountain Injury there. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you haven't done so, make sure you check out learntopaint.tv and the Learn to Paint Academy, which is where you'll find a free course where I go through all the steps that we've just done in the free course. That's learntopaint.academy. And Learn to Paint TV every week. We're up to episode 30 coming up next week. And make sure you check it out, learntopaint.tv. A little bit of shadow. Any final questions before we wrap up? Let me know. No worries, Pat. Thank you. Thanks, Doreen. Glad you enjoyed it. Thanks, Tracy. Chris, glad you loved it. Thank you, Veronica. Once you take the tape off, it'll look fabulous. Thanks for reminding me, Colin. Stick around, I'll take the tape off. I need some crows. Yeah, I think it probably needs a couple of little people and maybe a few birds. Cockatoos, I think, is what it needs. Cows, not crows. My apology. You are right, Robin, but I think to get those in, I want that to be completely dry, so I'd leave that for now. Looks very similar to Texas. Oh, good, Anne. I love Texas. I've been to Austin and Dallas and absolutely love Texas, so I can't wait to get there again. Thanks, Robin. Thanks, Wendy. Thank you all for joining me. Now, just stick around because I'm going to, thanks, Marie. I'm going to take the tape off because, as Colin's pointed out, it'll look a lot better without the tape. But before I do that, I'm just going to put my signature on it. I'm going to pop this up on eBay probably by tonight and start the auction at 99 cents because I accumulate too many paintings and I want to build up my audience on eBay just so I can sell them. So if you're interested in having this at home so you can study it, then check out my eBay account. Just search for Rod Moore on eBay. And you could be the proud owner of this demo painting. So check it out. So tape. Let's remove the tape. So yeah, part of the reason why I'm doing this on loose canvas like this is once it's dry, it can be rolled up and put into a postal tube and basically sent anywhere in the world. So wherever you are, if you like the painting, make sure you bid on it on eBay. After a while the tape all becomes one with the painting. And this bit here. There you go, friends. That is Farmhouse at Mount Nindri in Yandina. Classic little Australian landscape scene, and hope you've all enjoyed it. I'm not left-handed, Chris. I'm right-handed, and it's just the live stream on the phone, Facebook. I don't know why. It's just the way it does it. So I'm right-handed. So you're probably seeing this painting completely in reverse to what it is. Now somebody has asked, how will I frame it? So if you wanted it framed, let me know. If you want to bid on it on eBay and you end up buying it but you want it delivered framed, then what I'll do is take some MDF board and I will glue it to the board, okay? And then we'll put that into a frame and we can send it to you anywhere in the world. The first step would be to win the painting on eBay, but that's how we'd frame it, and pretty easy to do. It'll look great in the frame actually. A nice sort of big frame there. You'd have a really nice painting to have on the wall at home. So yeah, thanks very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I think we've achieved a fair bit in an hour and 20 minutes. I mean, normally to do a painting of that size, you know, if I was going to put it in a show or a gallery, probably be 4 or 5 hours worth of work to get it right. But I think we've achieved a fair bit in a short period of time. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Until next time. Cheers for now. If you're interested, this doesn't apply to everyone. If you're interested in the business side of art, selling your artwork or becoming an art teacher, then Friday mornings I'm doing a live stream chat where I talk about the business side of art. And look out for that tomorrow. Tomorrow's probably going to be a little bit earlier because I've got to go and speak at the Country Women's Association. I should take this painting because it's in the Andina. But yeah, so tomorrow will be a little bit earlier, but normally it'll be around about the same time as what we did this one today. So, you know what I think it needs? I'm a fiddler. I can't leave my paintings alone. But what it needs is Dad's rugby top to be just a touch brighter. Or have I ruined it? No, that looks alright. Looks alright. And it needs just a touch, a little bit more white in the bed sheet. There we go. Alright, don't touch it again, Rod. Okay, thanks everyone. Appreciate you joining me. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. Cheers. I don't know how to end it.